being here. My name is Rosie with Sew Stitch and Cold, and today we're going to be going over a really fun bag. So today's bag is the Guardian Backpack by Linds Handmade. Ta-da! Isn't that a gorgeous bag? I think my favorite feature of the bag is the shape itself. Such a fun bag. I've been wanting to make this bag for a while. I just hadn't gotten around to doing so. And I know there are a lot of tutorials out there for this bag, but I really wanted to make it and film it, so here it is. So I did a few changes to mine. So I have a front pocket on mine. It's a front slip pocket with a magnetic snap. So, hold on, bag's a little heavy. Here we go. So I have a magnetic snap, and it's a little cute Mickey waffle magnetic snap. So that was one of the changes I made. I didn't make a ton of changes. The other changes are inside. But the bag has this awesome strap for carrying. This is optional, so you don't have to do this. And then there's the backpack straps. So you can use it just as a backpack strap, or say you don't even want to use this as a backpack and don't want to add these. You don't have to. Just add the handle and use this as your bag carrier strap. So yeah, there's many options you can do on this bag. It's a pretty simple pattern, meaning it's simple as in there isn't a lot going on. The bag, I wouldn't say, is a simple bag to make. These corners are a little challenging, a little bit. The one up here, I would say, is the worst part, and then that would be it. But if you go slow, take your time, it's achievable. Mine is not perfect, but good enough, right? Good enough bag. It's for me, but I really love the way this bag turned out. So let's take a look inside. So I did use a double zipper for my main compartment, which is worn on the back side of your back. So and Guardian is, you know, a anti-theft backpack, but I do have a slip pocket in front. I mainly did that because I didn't want it to be so plain, because I'm using just a plain black faux vinyl, and I really wanted to use my really fun Mickey magnet, which I have matching Mickey Chicago screws. So main reason why I added that slip pocket. And then on the inside, I wanted to do a slip pocket for my Mickey ears. Isn't that fun? So in the park, sometimes, not that I go a lot or anything, I live in Alaska, but they tend to hurt your head a little bit, so I want to take them off, but I have nowhere to put them. So this bag is specifically for when we do go to the Disney parks. So I can put my ears here, and if I'm not at the park and I'm just using this bag on a normal day, it's just a slip pocket. So that's what I did on the inside. I did a full slip pocket rather than doing the divided one that she had. And then my other change is the zipper. So I did a zippered pocket above that. So those are my changes. I've seen this bag made in so many different ways. It's such an awesome pattern to add things to that you would like to have. It's like a clean canvas for you to choose what you want to do with your bag. And so those are the options I will be doing today. So if you're interested in doing a slip pocket and a zippered pocket on the inside, there you go. You have it on this tutorial. So that is mainly it. The bag does have side pockets. So side pockets, which I do a little differently. The pockets are the same dimensions. Everything is cut out the same. But instead of using a full piece, and you'll see when I go over the pattern, and I wanted to have a different lining on the inside rather than it being the same as the outside. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you'll see in the tutorial how I changed that. And that's really it. The materials I used are a faux vinyl on the outside, which is a really soft faux vinyl, which I got from Bodio. And the interior and my lining for my pocket pieces are a water-resistant canvas from Fabric Therapy. Isn't that cute? I love that water-resistant canvas. So cute. And that's it. I did interface my exterior and my lining. I wanted the bag to have some structure and it not be super slouchy. And the vinyl that I used is a little bit on the drapey side. So I did interface it with a woven interfacing, and I interfaced my water-resistant canvas with a woven interfacing, mainly because I wanted it to have a little more structure. Water-resistant canvas isn't as thick as an Ortex waterproof canvas, which I do use a lot of, but it is fun to experiment with different types of materials, and I thought I'd give the water-resistant canvas a try, and I do like it. It's really easy to work with. It's not bulky, so it's really nice, and I feel like it has its uses in many different applications. So yeah, so that's how I interfaced the bag. Those are the materials I used, and let me put it on so you can get an idea of what it looks like on. I'm 5'1", so I am kind of short, and I will get a stool to stand so you can kind of see what it looks like. And I did make the bag the way that it is in the pattern, so I didn't make it any bigger, any smaller. It's the same size. Alright, so let me go grab a stool. Alright, so here I grabbed a stool, so I'll put on the backpack so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So there it is, worn as a backpack. I don't feel like it's overly large. It doesn't hit my arms on the side, which I really appreciate. Some backpacks tend to be a little wider, so they hit your arms, and this one does not. I really do like that. It's not that huge of a bag, although it's pretty roomy, and it feels very comfortable. The 1.5-inch wide webbing straps are really nice. And yeah, that's the bag. I love it. So let's get started. Let's go over our pattern pieces before we get started. So our front and back main panels are cut in a very specific way. Linds has a video tutorial on all of her patterns, and on this one she shows exactly how she cuts her front and back main panel on her video tutorial. So I do suggest that you go check that out, because I've already cut my pattern pieces and she actually does the cutting in the video. So you can get a better understanding of how to cut this if I'm not explaining it well enough for you to get this portion of the bag cut out. Go ahead and check her out. If you haven't subscribed to her channel yet, please do so. She has tutorials on all of her patterns. Here are all the pieces that you cut from this one piece. So I'm gonna set this aside for now. And on this panel is the first portion that you'll be cutting. So you'll fold right at these dotted lines. You'll fold up just like that, and you'll cut around this pattern piece, and this will be your front panel and your lining for your front panel. So it's this full shape right here, so you'll have the middle section in there and this portion folded up. And then we remove our pattern piece, and this is what you have. You'll have your exterior and your lining for your front panel. So I'm gonna set these aside. Now we have our back panel, which is where our zipper goes. Because this bag is a anti-theft bag, the zipper is on your back side. So this is how we'll cut our back main panel. So you'll have this portion folded down, and before I cut my little notches out here, it is a full piece. You just cut these notches out afterwards. So let's pretend they're there. So we'll cut all the way around this, all the way around, all the way up and down, all the way, and there will be a portion here that you cut out later. And so you'll cut that out of your main exterior and your lining. And then what you're going to do is that you'll cut your little notches right here. So this is exactly what it would look like. And you're going to fold this portion up, and you're going to cut around all the way around, and that's what's going to give you your pocket piece. So then you're left with, remove our pattern piece, you're left with these two pieces just like this. And this will be our back portion. I hope that makes sense. You'll have your exterior and your lining for these as well. So from this pattern piece, you're going to have your front main panel, exterior and lining. And for your back main panel, you're going to have your pocket piece that gets cut out, which is not really a, well, it is a pocket. It just zips this way, and that's the main access point to the bag. So it'll cut this out. So you'll need your exterior and your lining, and with what's left over, which is this little portion here, has an exterior and lining as well. So these are the pieces you should have for your front panel and your back panel. I also want to talk about how I interfaced my bag. So my exterior pieces are a faux leather, and I did interface all of my black faux leather, which are my exterior pieces, with a woven interfacing because it did have some drape and I wanted to add a little more structure to the fabric. So depending on the fabric choices you have is how you're going to interface your bag. So here I have a light-ish medium weight faux leather, which I interfaced with a woven interfacing. And then my lining, I did interface because this is the water resistant canvas. So it is on the thinner side. It's not as thick as the Ortex waterproof canvas. And I wanted to have a little more structure to the bag. I didn't want it to be super slouchy, so I did interface my my water resistant canvas, which is all of my lining pieces, with a woven interfacing as well. So all these pieces are interfaced with a woven interfacing. Here I have my front panel, and I'm going to go over some of the changes that I did make to the bag. You can follow along on this video if you do plan to make the bag the way the pattern is written. They are the exact same steps. I'm just going to be adding a few things along the way, so you can skip through the things that I add if you don't choose to do that. But here I have my front slip pocket that I'm going to be adding to the front panel. So this is my front panel, and this is my front slip pocket. And what I did is that I used my front panel piece, move these out of the way. I used my front panel piece and I cut it in half. That's what I did. I just cut it in half to get my front slip pocket piece. So I'm using the bottom half of that pattern piece as my slip pocket. And so then I'm going to use a magnetic snap, this cute little Mickey magnetic snap, and I'm going to put that right here. And that's what's going to keep my pocket closed. Ain't that cute? So I really wanted to use my Mickey magnetic snap. So I added a slip pocket to this bag and thought this was a perfect addition to this pocket. So here I have an exterior piece and a lining piece for that pocket. Next I have my interior lining piece where we're going to be adding a slip pocket. So in the pattern she does have a slip pocket, which she has a pattern piece for, which I have right here. This is the pattern piece that she has for her slip pocket, which is that big. So it would in the pattern be sewn on this way. I chose to cut my slip pocket the same way I cut my slip pocket for my front exterior slip pocket, mainly because I want to put Mickey ears in here. So what I did, instead of using this pattern piece for a slip pocket, I just made it a little bit bigger, which is the same exact width of the bag. Just like the front pocket on the front side of the bag, I am putting on the interior side of the bag. Instead of this slip pocket, I'm doing this slip pocket. So up to you, they're done a little differently, but I wanted a full-sized slip pocket, which is cut the exact same way, nothing different as I did my front slip pocket. And so Mickey ears can fit in here when I'm at the park. So they'll go just like that. Hopefully, we'll see. So I'm making the slip pocket so I can fit Mickey ears into it basically, and they have a place to sit when I'm at the park. And for that slip pocket, I have an exterior just so there's a contrast, and a lining piece. So these will be sewn on to my interior lining front panel. And onto this front panel, onto this panel, I am going to add a pocket, which is a zippered pocket, and this is the zipper I'm going to use. So I'm going to do a zippered pocket right here, and this is my pocket piece for that zippered pocket. And what I used for my zippered pocket was the pattern piece for the original slip pocket. So I just use this to cut out my piece for my pocket, for my zippered pocket. So those are my changes to the bag. So I'm gonna have a slip pocket right here and a zippered pocket right here. And then I used this pattern piece to cut out my pocket piece. So that's the differences. Those are the only changes I made to the bag. The rest will be sticking with the pattern. Here we have our side panel pattern pieces. And here you're gonna have 2 cuts of your exterior, which I've chosen a contrasting vinyl for this, and this is a little thinner than the black faux leather that I have also on here, so it's a little thinner. I did interface that with a woven interfacing, and then I interfaced it with Decoville Light just the way that she suggests in the pattern, and it's cut out of the seam allowances. So this is our side panels, and I have 2 of my exterior, 2 of my lining, which are also interfaced with a woven interfacing. This is our bottom base, and our bottom base is also interfaced with a woven interfacing and a Decoville Light cut out of my seams. And both your lining piece and your exterior piece are interfaced the same way. So you interface both your lining and exterior with a layer of woven and Decoville Light. So here I have a layer of woven and Decoville Light on both my pieces. So that's my exterior. This is my, this is my lining. This is my exterior. Next we have our side pockets, which I have 2 cuts of my accent vinyl and 2 cuts of my lining. Here we have our zipper tabs, 2 cuts of your exterior, and 2 cuts of your lining. And here we have our Dring tabs, our accent shoulder strap anchors, which I have cut out of my accent vinyl, and this is my exterior vinyl. So I decided to switch it up a little bit. And I did paint my edges with an edge coat, so you couldn't see the white edge when you cut into this vinyl. It has this white edge, and I didn't like that, and I didn't want to see it, so I ended up edge coating it with a black edge coat, so then that way when it's folded and closed like this, you can't see that white. So I did edge coat that. That's an optional step if you want to edge coat the material you choose for this portion. Up to you, it's optional. I did do it off camera. This is our carrying handle, which I also did the edge coat on, so you can't see it, although it does get folded in this direction. I just wanted to make sure that the white just does not show. It just will throw off the black, I think. And then these are our D-ring tabs. So that is it. Let's move on to what we need for hardware. So here I have all the hardware and zippers that we are going to need. I have 2 zippers because I'm adding that zippered pocket to the interior. So if you're not going to be doing that, you'll just have the one main zipper, which is a 20-inch zipper, and this is a number 5. And I'm adding a double pull to mine. You don't need to do that. So if you just want to do a single pull, you'll just have one zipper pull and 1 zipper. That's it for this bag, if that's what you choose to do. But I'm doing the interior pocket, so I have 3 zipper pulls because I'm doing a double pull on my main zipper, and I have the extra zipper for that one pocket. And then I have some really cute little Mickey Chicago screws, and these are going to be my rivets. So these are the ones I'm using for my rivets today. So I have 6 of these, and that's also optional. You don't have to use rivets on this bag if you don't want to. They're decorative, and they also add some strength to things, but they're mainly really pretty and cute. So I'm using these little Mickey ears, Chicago screws as my rivets. I have my nameplate. Here I have the binding that will be, I believe, on the bottom of the bag. That is all the binding on this bag, totally doable. And then we have webbing for our straps. Isn't that fun webbing? I feel like it matches everything. Look at that. Totally matches everything. So this is the webbing I'm using for my straps. And then you'll need 2 1.5-inch swivels, 2 1.5-inch sliders, and here I have 4 D-rings because I am making the optional shoulder strap. So I have 4. If you choose to not do your optional shoulder strap, then you'll just have the 2. And here I have my magnetic snap, which is that same Mickey, just a lot larger, which is going in the front of my bag. So it matches my little Chicago screws. Look how cute those are. Aren't those adorable? I love them. So cute. And then I have my last 2 1-inch swivels for my shoulder strap. So these are the optional. If you're using a shoulder strap, you'll have the 2 1-inch swivels and 2 D-rings. And if you're doing just the backpack portion, then you'll just have your 1.5-inch swivels and your 1.5-inch sliders and 2 D-rings. That is all we need. So let's get started. So in the pattern, it begins with doing some prep work. I've already gone ahead and done some of this, but we'll go over it real quickly. You'll cut your webbing to the specific sizes in the pattern, so please refer to that. Here I have 2 for my back strap, my backpack straps. So I have 2 pieces cut out of my webbing for that. I've got my shoulder strap, which is 1 piece for my shoulder strap, and if you're not doing the shoulder strap, you won't have that, so this is optional. And then this is the 1 piece for our grab handle at the top of the bag. So that's my webbing all cut out and prepped. And then on our side panels, we have this pattern piece with this little slip portion right here, which I've cut out with my X-Acto knife. So I just cut it out using my X-Acto knife on a cutting mat, and that's how I'm going to transfer that onto the back side of my side panels. And so your side panels are interfaced. This is my lining, so I have my lining interfaced with a woven, and I have my exterior interfaced with a woven and Decoville light, which is cut out of my seam allowance. So depending on the type of fabric you are using, you'll either have woven interfacing and Decoville light, or just your Decoville light cut out of your seam allowances. I did do a woven because I felt my vinyl was a little on the thinner side and I wanted a little more structure to it. That is how you interface this section. And then now what we're going to do is that we're going to transfer these cut lines onto the exteriors of my side panels. We line this up. I'm going to grab a clip so it doesn't move, and I'm going to transfer this little cut portion to my side panels. So you don't do this portion if you're not going to use your shoulder strap. So if you're not making a shoulder strap today, you skip this portion. So I'm going to transfer these little lines over so I know where to cut, and on this one. So you don't want these slits to be cut any bigger than this. So you want to make sure that when you do this, you cut them just the size. So I have transferred those over. And then what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna use my X-Acto knife, and I'm not gonna do it on camera because I don't wanna cut into this, but I'll go over to my cutting mat and I will use my X-Acto knife and I will cut along these lines, not going any further from this point to here, to here, to here. And you'll do that with both panels. I've cut out my slits now from my exterior pieces. So you cut right along those lines and it creates this little slit, which is for our hidden connectors for our shoulder strap. It's pretty cool. It's really neat how it looks in the end. So this is my exteriors. Those are done. And then our lining pieces do not get the cutout, just our exterior pieces. So we're going to set those aside. And our bottom pieces, if you haven't done this already, go ahead and interface your bottom pieces, your exterior and your lining with your Decoville and woven. I've done my woven on both my exterior and my lining, and she suggests to do the Decoville on both your exterior and lining in this portion also, and keep it out of your seam allowances. And then on all these pieces, we want to find our centers. So I have found my centers on the sides and along the top of both my exterior and lining. And same with our side panels. You want to find your centers on these top portions, the bottom, and I don't believe there's any on the sides, but there's the top and the bottom. So find your centers on your sides, your side panels and your bottom panel, and cut your webbing. Add your zipper pulls to your zipper. Cut your binding if you're using a waterproof canvas. If not, you'll have a pre-made binding. And what else? I believe that is it for the prep work before we get started sewing. We're going to start with our D-ring tabs. And here I have the D-ring tab pattern piece so I can show you. If you're not going to be doing the optional shoulder strap, you're only going to need half of this. You won't need the full length, so you'll just need the 1/2, which is what I have here. But since I am using a vinyl for my D-ring tabs, I cut my vinyl to 2 inches, so then I would have not as much bulk. So if you're using a vinyl or a cork or a thicker canvas of some sorts, you'll cut your D-ring tabs to 2 inches wide by the full length instead of the 4 inches wide and do the 4-fold method. So if you're using a woven fabric, then you'll do the 4-fold method. So here we are going to do the 2 inches and just do the 2-fold method, which will draw a line down the center and bring our raw edges to the center, and that'll be all we do with the vinyl. So if you are not doing your shoulder strap, then you'll have half of this. If you're doing the shoulder strap, you'll cut the full length of this. So here I have my 4 pieces, and what we're going to do is turn them all right side down, and we're going to draw a line down the center. So for this portion, you're going to need your D-rings, some double-sided tape, a ruler, some clips, and a marking pen. Let's draw lines down the center. So this is a 1-inch ruler, and I know my pieces are 2 inches, so I just measure 1 inch from the bottom. All right, I have my 4 pieces marked, and so now we're going to grab our double-sided tape, and we're going to lay a piece of double-sided tape along the center of that line on all of our 4 pieces. All right, my double-sided tape is now on all 4 pieces, and now I'm going to take the backing off of all of them. And now we're going to take our raw edge and we're going to fold it to the center to meet that line. So go ahead and do that to all of your D-ring pieces. Here I have all my 4 D-ring tabs folded to the centers, and now we're going to take these to the machine and we're going to top stitch along both edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on all 4 of our D-ring tabs. All right, we've gotten our straps now sewn, and so now what we're going to do is thread our D-ring tabs through our D-rings, and we're going to place a clip and we're going to set them aside. So do that with all 4. All right, now we're going to be adding our D-rings to our side panels, and then we're going to add our pockets to our side panels as well. But first we're going to work with our D-rings and our side panels. and just our exterior side panels. So I'm gonna grab my exterior side panels and move my linings to the side. Work with just the exterior side panels first. So if you haven't cut the slits for your D-rings, then go ahead and do so now, and make sure that when you cut those slits, you don't go more than 1 inch wide from the bottom wide section of those slits. So see right there, right here to here, it not be more than 1 inch wide. If not, you will have a really big hole and it will not look very pretty. Grab one of your D-rings, and I have it marked right there where my D-ring was. So I'm gonna take my D-ring off. And if you're using a cork or a vinyl or any kind of fabric where you did the 2-fold method and you have a line down the middle, make sure that your strap is facing upward. So we're gonna thread our tab through that hole, or through that slit, and we're gonna go about halfway, and my tab is sticking up where I can see the line underneath. This is the right side, this is the wrong side, so I can see it sticking underneath, sticking straight up. And then we're gonna flip our entire piece right side down, so you should see the tab right side on the back side. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to sew from one end to the other, staying within that inch, and we're going to sew right along this top edge, right along this top edge, and we're not going to go more than 1 inch. So from here to here, that is all we're going to sew right along this top edge. And to help me with that, I am going to mark my 1 inch marking so I don't go more than 1 inch. So I'm gonna grab a ruler and a marking pen, and I'm gonna mark 1 inch. So right there I have my markings, which is basically the same width of your strap tab. So let's go ahead and take this to the machine, and we're gonna do that with both, and we're gonna sew right above that cut line, no more than 1 inch. All right, so we've gone ahead and sewn our line just 1 inch from this point to that point on both of our panels. And so now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna grab our D-rings and we're gonna thread them through the front side. So flip them back over, and one at a time we're gonna thread our D-rings through our tabs. And then we're going to take our tab and we're going to push it back through that slit. All right, so now we've pulled that through, and now we have this. So now they're both sticking out the bottom. So you want to tug on that portion a little bit there to make sure that that D-ring is nice and snug. So do that to both sides. All right, so now we have both sides through, and now you want to flip them over. So you're seeing the wrong side of your panels, and we're going to flip these up. So you should have them up like this, and we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to take this entire flat part of the panel down, and you want your D-ring down here also so you don't sew over it. And we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to sew from this end to this end as close to this D-ring as possible. The D-ring's like right in here, so we're gonna sew right along here as close as possible. So if you have a zipper foot, go ahead and switch to a zipper foot, and we're gonna do that to both panels. So we're gonna take it and we're flipping it down, so we're not sewing it down, and we're gonna sew from this end to this end. All right, we've gone ahead and sewn that down just like that on both panels. And so now you should have this on the other side. Super cute. I really love these hidden connectors. They look so good. Hard to see because I'm using black, but look how cute that is. So now You can be done, or you can add some rivets, which I will be doing. I'm going to be adding my Mickey Chicago screws through here. So that's what we're going to do next. So here I've got my Chicago screws. So this is the Mickey head with the post, just like that. And then there's a little screw that goes on the back side. So it's a little different than an actual rivet, but they look like rivets. So I've got my little rivet guide here. It's from So Sweetness, and it allows me to find perfect spacing. A lot of the times I will just eyeball this, but since these are not like actual rivets and I don't use them too often, I want to make sure that I place them perfectly centered so they look right. So I'm gonna make sure that they're perfectly centered. So here on this top portion on this ruler, I have an inch here. So I'm gonna use my inch guide and find my center, which is this hole right here. And I'm gonna use my marking pen and mark that, and I have a perfect centered spot for my Chicago screw. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now I'm going to use my little handheld hole punch here. Oh, maybe. I don't think I can reach it. No, so I'm going to have to use my rivet press. So here I got my rivet press, and my rivet press has a little piercing tool that I'm going to use, since I cannot reach with my hand tool. I do like using my hand tool a lot, but we'll use this since I can't reach it. So I'll just line that up and pierce that hole so it makes a little hole for my Chicago screw. Now we're going to insert the post. Yeah, that's a much bigger hole than my piercing tool. So I'm gonna go and grab my hand tool and now try to go through the back side with this and see if that helps. All right, so I have my little Chicago screw through now. I'm gonna make sure it's straight. And I'll use my little screw. So I have my screwdriver. And now we're gonna just screw that on. Little Mickey Chicago screws on now. Super cute. So now I'm gonna do the same on the other side. My Chicago screws are now installed. And I did go ahead and add some glue. So I took them back out and I added some glue to the threads to make sure that they didn't come out over time. So those are now installed, and now we're going to add our pockets. Since I decided to use a lining for my pocket, so I'll have my exterior. That's my exterior. This is my lining. I'm going to sew them right sides together. And I'm going to do, I don't know, 1/4 inch maybe, a 1/4 inch along the top, and then I'm going to flip them wrong sides together, and then I'm going to top stitch at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. So then this will be the outside, this will be my lining piece. If you were doing this according to the pattern, you would have one full piece just like this, and you would fold wrong sides together in half and top stitch at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm gonna go and sew these pockets on 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'm gonna top stitch at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. So my pockets are now top stitch. Isn't that pretty? And now we're gonna add them to our side panels. Grab my first pocket here and we'll start on one side. And we'll line up the bottom edge and the side edge and start clipping. Okay, and then we'll go to the other side and we will lift it up, creating this 3D effect, lining up our other edge. Just like that, raw edge to raw edge, and it creates this little 3D looking pocket. So then we'll go baste this at the machine, down the sides, around the bottom, up the top. So then we'll do the same to the other one. Both pockets are now clipped, and now we're gonna take them to the machine and we're gonna baste on the sides, down the bottom, and up the other side. Okay, our pockets are now sewn on to our side panels. And now we're gonna set these aside and we're gonna move on to prepping our grab handle. You'll need your grab handle accent piece, your grab handle, a ruler, a marking pen that you can remove, and some double-sided tape. First, let's start with the grab handle itself. And we are going to find the centers. I'm gonna fold it in half to find my center and crease it. Then from this center line, we are going to measure 2 inches away from that center line and make a mark. No, I might not be able to see that. 2 inches from that, so that'd be 4 total. Okay, so I have my markings. You may not be able to see it too well, but I can see it. So we have our markings. So we have our center, and then 2 inches away from the center, you'll make a mark on each side. Now we're gonna grab some double-sided tape, and we are going to lay the double-sided tape right in the center, in between the 2 lines. Remove our backing, and then we're gonna fold this edge up to the center and meet the tape. Just in between those lines. And if you need some clips to help you hold that, which I will, this webbing's a little on the thicker side. So I'm gonna place some clips to help me hold it there. So like that, and now we'll do the same thing on the other side. I needed to use a few clips because mine keeps wanting to come apart. So now we're gonna take this to the machine and we're gonna sew along the short edge, the long edge, back up the short edge, and back down the long edge to sew this closed. So we're just gonna go right along the outside of this center crease. So I went ahead and sewed the box around that to sew it shut, and it doesn't have to be pretty, thank goodness, because yeah, that is not looking too good. So now we're gonna cover that up with our accent piece if you choose to do an accent piece. If not, you can be done at this point. We're gonna grab our little accent piece, grab some double-sided tape, and we're gonna lay some double-sided tape along the long raw edges. And I did edge coat my piece because there will be one side once we fold this over that'll remain raw, and I didn't want it showing, so I painted mine. We're gonna remove our double-sided tape, and then we are going to center our grab handle in the center here, and then we're gonna bring up one side and fold in. Is that centered? And then we're gonna grab the other side, turn it around, and fold in. So you'll have a little bit of a gap. right at the top. It won't fold all the way around. You have a little bit of a gap. Right there. And now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna take this to the machine and we're gonna do the same thing as we did on the grab handle portion, and we're gonna sew right around that same box shape to sew it shut. Okay, so that's sewn on now. And what I did, because I really wanted to make sure that this turned out nicely since you're gonna see it, is that I measured a 1/4 inch from this edge and made a line, and the same thing on the other side, 1/4 inch from this edge and made a line. You can kind of see it there, and that's my guide to staying within that 1/4 inch 1/4 inch allowance that I gave myself. And then I did a 1/4 inch on both sides also. So I left my threads long so I can pull them to the back and tie them off. So what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna pull on my bobbin thread and a loop pops up. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a loop right there. So you're gonna grab that loop, and I have my seam ripper here to help me pull that through. And then you just pull that thread through, and then do the same with the other one. Pull on that, a loop pops out, and you pull that through. You want to tie a few knots, 2 or 3 is good. Okay, and you're going to cut those off, and you're going to burn, don't burn your knot, just the little ends to make sure they don't unravel. And there we are. It's done, and then I'll wipe off my markings. So now we're gonna mark 1 inch from each edge. So I got my marking tool. Again, you wanna use something that you won't, that won't mark your fabric, something that you can erase. I've got my markings now, 1 inch from each edge, and now we'll set our handle aside. So in this part of the pattern is where you start working on your slip pocket, and since I decided to make my slip pocket a little bit differently, so follow along with the pattern if you're going to do the regular slip pocket. If you're going to follow along with me, then stay with me. And so here I have my exterior fabric, which is going to be part of my slip pocket, and my lining piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join these right sides together along the top edge, place a few clips. So now I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to sew across this top straight edge at a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, and now I'm going to flip my pieces over and join them wrong sides together. And I'm going to push out that seam, because now we're going to go top stitch along this top edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, I've got my top stitching done. Now I'm going to trim down where I have a little bit of excess fabric. Okay, and now we're going to go baste this pocket on along the sides, the bottom, and along back up the other side, and then we'll be done with our pocket. So I've basted my pocket on, so now we're going to move on to making a zippered pocket, which is also not part of the pattern, but I wanted to add a zippered pocket to this panel. So I'm going to use my zipper ruler jig here, my bobber, and I'm going to see where I want to place my zipper. I'm going to do 1.5 inches from the top. All right, and now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew around this box. So before you do that, make sure that you have your pocket and your right side of your panel facing up, your pocket right sides together. Line up your centers. So now with a short stitch length, I'm going to sew around this box. So I got that box sewn. Use my scissors. And now we're gonna push our pocket through. Check my corners. Okay, they look good. So now we're gonna push these seams and just roll them to create our pocket. And you can use an iron on water resistant canvas, so I'm probably gonna go do that to give it a nice steam, get some nice crisp edges, and then add our zipper. All right, so I've got my pocket nice and pressed, and now I'm gonna grab my zipper, and I'm going to lay double-sided sticky tape, probably not that wide. I'm gonna use 1/8 inch double-sided sticky tape, and I'm going to lay it on the edges of my zipper to help me place my zipper on the pocket. Since my zipper is much wider than I need, I'm going to push my zipper over and keep it out of the way for now. So now I am going to take one of the double-sided sticky tape and peel off the, I can't think today. My words are not coming to me today. Peel off the thingy, how about that? And we're gonna lay down the bottom. I'm centering my zipper in that box as best as I can with my zipper pull out of the way and my zipper pull to the left. So closing to the left, opens to the right. Take off the other side and then lay that pocket down. Side of the pocket down. And if you need to make some adjustments, now would be the time. I think it looks pretty good. So now we're gonna go sew around this box edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And before I get to here, I'm gonna bring my zipper back in and then finish sewing to close up the box. Alright, I've gotten my zippered pocket top stitch, so now I'm going to pull my threads to the back and tie them off just like we did on our grab handle. And our pocket is done. So now we're going to close up the pocket. So we're going to take this bottom side, we're going to bring it up and match those ends, and we are going to take this to the machine and we're going to move the panel out of the way, and we're going to sew this direction across the top, moving the panel out of the way, and down this way to close up our pocket. And I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so I've got my pocket closed up, and I did more than a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I wanted to make sure that it stayed out of my seams when we go to sew the bag together. So I made a little bit more, just so I had enough to work with here. And there's not an exact size that you need to have this pocket to be, so I am winging it. So I'm trimming down my seam allowance here and the rest of my zipper tape that's sticking out. And our pocket is now complete. We have a nice little cute pocket. There you go. And that is a pocket on our back panel and our front panel. This is actually the front side of the bag. And a slip pocket for my Mickey ears. All right, so let's move on to the next step. So since I am adding a front slip pocket to my front panel as well, which is not in the pattern either, I'm gonna go ahead and get that done now to get it out of the way. So we're gonna do this slip pocket the same way we did the slip pocket on the lining piece. we're gonna add my magnetic snap, which I totally could have done before I did this, but I don't have it sewn shut, so it's okay. We got it. It's all right. We'll work with it. So I'm gonna find my centers, so I can find my center on top. First, I'll cut down this so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so I've got my pocket trimmed down. I'll find my center on my pocket. I'm just gonna crease it here. And I'm gonna use my little screwdriver, which comes with this nifty little set here. And we're gonna undo this Mickey magnetic snap here. It comes apart like that. So then this is what I'm gonna use to make my markings on where he's gonna go. And I want him a 1/4 inch down from that stitch line. So I'm gonna measure 1/4 inch on that stitch line. There's my center right there. And my Mickey will sit centered right there. All right, so we'll move our Mickey and I'm gonna line him up right there. I'm gonna make my marks. Right here. Okay. So now I'm gonna grab my seam ripper and I'm gonna separate my lining away since I already attached my lining because I got ahead of myself. So I believe we use the male end, female end. All right, I had to go and regroup a little bit. I have not used one of these before, so I had to figure out how that would work. So I'm going to go through the lining as well. Just tiny little slits. And then this portion from not the back side, so from this side. So I inserted the male end through the lining to the front, then my washer piece, which I probably want to make holes. All right, so here I have my mat, and how I'm gonna do this is because I don't want really big holes in my piercing hole attachment for my press is a little big. So this is how I'm gonna do it. I'm improvising. I'm using one of the smaller holes on my hand hole thingy-mabobber here and just pushing it down on it and it cuts right through. All right, so now I got my holes without going through my lining. So we're doing this together here, learning how to do this together because I've never installed one of these before. It just kind of throws you off just a little bit. All right, and now I'm gonna grab my Mickey, or is it the washer? Fold the prongs down without hurting yourself. All right, and then we add our Mickey. We are going to move on to installing the female end to this side. So I'm gonna find my centers. Make sure I got my centers here. Find my washer, wherever that went. What's over here? I'm gonna push down on that to make a mark on the other end, which is not making a mark. So I'm gonna color on the other end of my magnetic snap here. Find my centers, align up the bottom, and press down. Aha! It did work. Grab a washer, line that up. Make my marks. Install my magnetic snap. I'm gonna put some Decovil on that to make sure it doesn't tear my vinyl. All right, so I've got a piece of Decovil here, just a scrap of Decovil. I'm gonna draw my lines. And push that through. then my washer, and then I'm gonna put a piece of tape on that. Some real sticky stuff. Well, at least that went well. All right, so now I'm going to clip my edges, and then we're gonna go baste this pocket on. So now I'm gonna baste along the edges and along the bottom. Right, my pocket is now basted on, and yeah, I don't know, I think this is going to work. It looks really clean, although I'm not really sure how I pulled that off, because I don't think I installed it correctly, but yeah, I don't know. We're gonna go with it because it's on there. It seems really secure. Like, it's not going anywhere, and I only put 2 of the screws in, one here and one here, because I could not get this one to line up for whatever reason. But again, I really do think I installed it incorrectly. I don't know. So if anybody has installed these before, like, leave me a comment in the description or down below and let me know what I did wrong. I don't know. I am trying to figure out how it is that I would do that any differently, and it's just not computing. My brain ain't computing it. But anyway, it is what it is. It's my bag, so it doesn't matter if it's on incorrectly. It looks good. It looks clean. It's working, and we're gonna go with it. So there's my pocket. It's pasted onto my front panel, and now we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna move on. So now we're gonna create our main zipper panel. So you're gonna need your main zipper panel. You're gonna need your zipper and your zipper tabs, which I have 2 exterior, 2 lining, and you're gonna need some clips. So I'm gonna move these aside for now, and we're gonna work on our zipper first. So here I have my zipper, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a zipper sandwich. Lay my exterior down face up, lay my zipper right on top of that, lining up those edges, and then grab an exterior piece, right side down, lay that on top of the zipper. So we are creating a zipper sandwich. So I'm gonna grab a clip, and I'm going to make sure all these raw edges are lined up and place my clip. Now we will do the same on the other side. And now we're gonna take this and we're gonna sew on these edges at a 3/8 seam allowance. And then we're going to flip these out like this. And then we are going to top stitch at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have your zipper tabs sewn on, go ahead and make sure that from end to end with your zipper tabs, it measures at least 30 inches long. So now we're gonna find our centers on our zipper tape. Okay, so I have my centers. And now we are going to grab our front, or our exterior panel for our zippered panel. So what we're gonna do is, since I have a double pull, it doesn't matter which direction I actually do this on. But if you like your zippers to be on the left side, meaning they close to the left, you want to have your zippers on the left. You want to flip your zipper tape, and then this does make it easier if it's open. So then go ahead and open it up, and we are going to find our centers, clip, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom, line that up, and clip. Same with the other side. So now we can go ahead and ease in the zipper tape. So she does suggest to go ahead and make little notches along your zipper. I'm just going to make the notches right around the curve only, so once I get there I'll make my little notches. So I'm gonna just start clipping. Okay, so once I have reached about there, I'm gonna start making little notches in my zipper tape. And then I'm gonna continue clipping. All right, our panel is now clipped all the way around, and now we're gonna take this to the machine and we're gonna baste it down. Our zipper tape is now basted on, and now what we're going to do is grab our lining piece, which I have right here, and we're going to go right side down. So you want right sides together. And we're going to find our centers, and we're going to clip. Find our centers at the bottom. And then we are going to clip our bottom edge and then finish clipping all the way around. All right, once you have your lining clipped, now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to sew at a 3/8 seam allowance, going from this bottom edge all the way around the curve and back down and ending here. And what you want to do while you're sewing, and if you have a zipper foot, go ahead and switch that to a zipper foot. Our zipper is right here. So as we're sewing, we want to make sure that our zipper is out of the way. And my zipper pulls are right here. So I just want to make sure that when I get to here, I want to move my zipper out of the way and continue sewing. So let's go ahead and take this to the machine and sew at a 3/8 seam allowance. Alright, we've got that sewn, and now we're going to turn this right side out. So you want to push out your zipper and make sure that everything looks good once you have it all pushed out here. So right here I caught my zipper. Right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back wrong side out. I'm going to pick that and I'm going to fix it. Alright, let's see if that helped. I went ahead and picked both my curves here and went back and smoothed them out a little bit better and tried to keep that zipper out of the way. Turn this back out. Check that zipper again. Yeah, that looks much better. See if I can pull those threads out. I just sewed them in. All right, so now what we're gonna do is that we're going to roll the seam the best we can. Since I have vinyl, I cannot press this, but if you're using a fabric that you can press, right now would be a good time to do that. And we want to pull away from our zipper, make sure everything lays nice and flat, and we're going to go top stitch along this. We're going to go top stitch along this curve at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and as you sew you want to pull away at your fabrics both at the same time and just kind of pull, grab, pull, and sew at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. All right, we've done our top stitching. Look how pretty that looks. Isn't that pretty? I love it. All right, so now I'm gonna close my zipper. I admire my work. There's the back. Looks good. And now we're gonna grab the rest of our panel. All right, so I have the rest of my panel piece right here. I'm going to move my lining aside for now, and we're gonna work with the exterior piece. So we have this like this, and what we're gonna do is that we're gonna line this up just like that, like it goes in the center. And then we're going to flip it upward like this. See if you can see what I'm doing here. And then, so this panel was down, now it's up. So we're going to clip this bottom part of the curve onto this part of our zipper, and it will line up right at the centers. And we're going to place a clip. And we're going to place a few clips. And then it's going to want to naturally just kind of curve around. And we are going to find our bottom and line that up perfectly. Place a clip. Find the other side, place a clip. And now we're going to finish easing in the rest of the panel. Right here on this curve, I'm going to clip some notches since I didn't pre-clip all of my zipper. Prior to this, I'm going to clip just right here around these curves and then continue clipping on. All right, I have my panel clipped on, so we're going to baste this panel on, and we are going to go from this bottom all the way up and around to this end, and we're going to baste this on. And what we're going to do is that we're going to sew it in this direction. We're going to open the pocket. It's the way Linds suggests to do it, so this is the way I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna open the pocket. To keep this pocket out of the way, and we're gonna sew along the machine going on this portion all the way around with it face up. All right, we've gotten our panel basted on. So it's basted on, and before I move forward, I am going to add my tag to this back pocket. I wasn't sure where I was gonna put my tag, so before we go any further, I'm gonna add it onto this back panel piece. My tag, and I'm not sure where I wanna put it just yet. Maybe somewhere around there. Yeah, I think I wanna do that. All right. So I'm going to add my bag tag, and then we are going to grab our lining piece and add that portion on. So I'm going to fast forward through this portion. I've gone ahead and attached my bag tag. So now we're going to flip this over, grab our lining piece, and we are going to flip this where right sides are meeting each other. So that's the right side, this is the right side. And then this curved part is going to be right here, and your legs are going to be, let's call these legs, are going to be up. So we're going to match this center curve with this center curve and put a clip. And then we're going to, just like we did the exterior piece, place a few clips. And then go to the bottom and match up your bottoms. Match up my bottoms. Place a clip. And now we're going to finish clipping all the way around. All right, our lining is now clipped on. So now we're going to go take this to the sewing machine. And we are going to sew at a 3/8 seam allowance from one end all the way around, all the way to the other end. And make sure that when you do that, that you feel for your zipper, just like we did before, and move your pulls out of the way as you're sewing. and just go slow around these curves. Alright, so we've stitched on our lining piece, and now we're gonna finger press the lining out really well, because it's going to want to fight you to lay flat. So we're gonna finger press this really good, and as we go along, we're gonna clip the lining to the exterior. And we are going to go top stitch this. So kind of tug it along here. Like that. All the way around. Tug, tug, tug. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Get it all clipped. And then we're going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to do a top stitch all along this edge. Alright, I have all that clipped now, and we're going to go take this to the machine, and we are going to top stitch along this edge all the way around the zipper and back down. And as we top stitch, we want to be tugging all the way along both the exterior and the lining out just like this as we sew along. We want to tug, sew, tug, sew. All right. Alright, so I have that top stitched. Top stitching looks good, but I got a little bit of crinkling. I think it'll be fine once it's like all put together. It'll get smoothed out. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to grab our last two D-rings and we're going to add them to the exterior of our panel here, and we want to do it 1.5 inches from the bottom on the right and left hand corners. So I'm going to place that right there. Mine are a little longer than they needed to be, so. And now we're going to take these to the machine and we're going to baste them on, but we want to baste them on only to the exterior fabric, not the lining. Make sure those are on just on your exterior fabric. Alright, so let's go baste these now. Alright, my D-rings are now basted on. I'm going to trim them down. And now we're going to move on to our next step. Alright, so now we're going to work on our back straps. So grab your two straps, your front main panel, some scissors, a marking tool, and a ruler. I've already gone ahead and made my markings here. So you want to measure 3 inches in from the side on each side and make a mark. So now I'm going to take one side of my webbing and I'm going to make a slight cut right at the top. And you want these cuts to be mirrored if you have a directional webbing, which I do not. So I have my webbing cut. Now we want to line up these edges right at that mark and place a clip right at that mark and place a clip. So now we're going to go baste these on. So I'm going to roll these up kind of tuck them away. All right, let's go to the machine and baste those straps on. All right, my straps are now basted, and I'm gonna go ahead and burn my ends real quick because I did not do that earlier. Making sure not to burn my vinyl. All right, so now this step is done, and now we're gonna go grab our back main panel. Now we have our back panel, our front panel, and we're gonna turn our back panel right side down, and we're gonna clip this top portion. So you're gonna peel your lining away, and you're just going to clip your exterior portion to your front panel. So we're gonna line up our centers, and we're gonna clip along the top, and we're gonna take this to the sewing machine, and we're gonna sew right across the top at a 3/8 seam allowance. So we've sewn our exteriors together on the top portion right there, and so now we're gonna press the seam open. And since I have vinyl, I cannot use an iron to press this seam open. But if you have fabric that you can use an iron with, go ahead and do that. So mine's not wanting to lay flat, so I'm going to use some double-sided tape to help me keep that seam laying flat and open. So I'm going to lay this here. I'm going to do this on the other side of the seam also. And then we will be repeating the same process with our liner. I'm just pressing along the seam onto that double-sided tape. All right, and I will do that on along the other side as well. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing with our lining piece. So line your lining piece right sides together. Find your center. I'm going to have to make sure I don't sew my pocket in there. So I'm gonna clip it away from my seam. And then we're gonna do the same thing across the top of our lining piece, and we're gonna sew at a 3/8 seam allowance, and then we're gonna press open that seam just like we did here. I've gone ahead and flattened out this seam as well on my lining, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another piece of double-sided sticky tape right along the center of the seam, so when we put these together both seams can lay nice and open. So I'm going to take that off. And I'll line up the seams on one end first. I'll place a clip there just to help me keep it even. Line up this seam and then press down on these seams. Just like that. So they lay nice and flat. So now we're going to add our grab handle. So grab your grab handle, and that will be what we do next. Alright, so here I have my grab handle, and what we're going to do is that we're going to add our grab handle to the top here right along this seam, and we're going to sew a box. So we're not going to go past our marked lines here on our ends when we marked an inch in. You don't want to go past that because we need to have our liner and exterior separated for adding our side panels. So we need to make sure that when we sew that box, we don't go past these marked lines. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my box line on. You can also wing it and not draw them out. I don't trust myself, so I'm going to draw the box line out, and then I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew that down. So I have my handle now sewn on, and I just took it really slow. I am not a fan of doing X boxes. I'm just saying that now. Just mainly because I really like things to look symmetrical, and I am not the straightest sewer in the world. And so this actually didn't turn out too bad by marking it out so I can see what I was doing. So it didn't turn out too bad. So if you're not the straightest sewer in the world and don't feel like you can wing the X, go ahead and mark it out first, then go and sew, and it'll turn out good. I did not go all the way out to my 1-inch line here, so hopefully it doesn't matter. But I felt like the box looked larger than it should. I don't know. For me, looking at it, I felt like, oh, well, the box should be about the same size as the width of my strap. And this is wider than the strap, so it didn't look right to me. That's all just me. So if you want to go all the way out to this 1-inch line, go for it. That's what it says to do in the pattern. Just don't go past it. I stayed within this section right here, which is the width of my strap. So I'm gonna add a woven label to my lining, and it says just a little bit wonky. I feel like this bag is just a little bit wonky. So I am going to add this tag because it's speaking to me at the moment. This bag has thrown me for a loop a little bit. Like installing that magnetic snap up front, just, yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but that just didn't work out too well for me. And this lining is just a little bit wonky. So there's some little spots that I got a little bit of, I'm assuming it's shrinkage. I got a little pleating right here and here. But other than that, it's not pleated, but it looks like it is. So I know my exterior is not pleated at all, but it looks like it's pleated. So I'm assuming that it's just maybe just pulling, and maybe the lining shrunk a little bit. I don't know. But it's, for me, it's not perfect, but I am loving it. It's turning out really good in my opinion. Just a little bit wonky. So perfect label for the perfect occasion. So I'm gonna go add my label now, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna add our side panels. So I have my label sewn on, and now I'm going to flip the bag over. We're gonna work on this side, and we're gonna grab our exterior side panels. I have my exterior lining panels to the side for now. So one at a time, we're gonna work on our exterior side panels. And what we wanna do is that we wanna go right sides together. So we're gonna flip this over, and I'm gonna trim this guy down. It doesn't need to be that long. All right, and then we're going to find our center, and we're going to separate our exterior from our lining. That's why when we sewed our handle on, we left this open here. That's why you weren't supposed to go after, past your 1 inch, is so you can separate your exterior from your lining when attaching your side panels. So I have my exterior separated from my lining, and I'm going to line up my centers right on this center seam, and I'm going to place a clip. And Linds suggests, and this is how I'm going to do it, Linds suggests to sew across the top first, so about 1 inch across the top first, to secure the panel on, and then going and clipping your sides from the bottom up and then the bottom up. And then when you go sew, you want to sew one side at a time. So you'll start on this end, go all the way up to where your stitches end up here, and then again on the other side from the bottom and end where your stitches end up here. So that's how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go and take this to the machine now, and I'm going to sew one panel at a time. So we're going to do this panel first, and then we're going to turn around and do the other panel first, the other panel second, and then we do our lining. So let's go to the machine, and we'll do a 3/8 seam allowance right across the top. Alright, so I've attached my side panel right across the top, and now I'm going to go to one bottom edge and start clipping. Now I'm going to the other bottom edge and clipping from there up as well. I have that clipped, and now we're going to go take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to start at one end, and I'm going to go sew up and meet my stitches right here, back stitch, stop, start again at the bottom, go all the way up, meet my stitches here, back stitch, and stop. And we're going to do that at 3/8 seam allowance. And we will be repeating this same exact way on the other side. Alright, so I've gone and attached this side panel on, and now I'm going to flip it over just to give it a check and see how everything looks. Looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but looks pretty good. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Remember to keep your lining out of the way. We're only doing exterior. So repeat the same thing on the other side. The other side is now done, so I'm going to take a peek real quick before I move on to the lining. Looks good to me. So we're going to go ahead and move to the lining. So before I move on and finish sewing the lining, I wanted to kind of show what you should have. So here I've already sewn the other side of the lining, and it's kind of awkward. It looks a little awkward. But we have our exterior on this side. So this is our exterior side panel. This is our lining side panel. So our lining side panel is over here. So they're right next to each other. If that makes any sense. So this is our lining. This is our exterior. Exterior, lining. So I have my lining already clipped and ready to go. So now I'm going to go take this to the machine, and remember that when you're doing your lining, to make sure you're not sewing in your exterior. So this is all my exterior here, and this is my lining clipped away from my exterior. You see that? Our exterior is completely clipped away from our lining. Alright, so let's go get this sewn, and we're almost done. We're in the home stretch. So we have finished attaching our side panels to our lining, and now we're going to turn our bag in right side out. So this is what you should have with your bag turned right side out. And when I was doing my lining, I had noticed that when I did my grab handle and my straps, I did not move my straps to the back side of the bag when I did that. So when you go and add your handle and go do this portion where you're going to do your X box, when you add on your handles, it's to the front of the bag. So before you sew on your grab handle and do your X box, you want to, so this is the way they would be, to the front of the bag. You want to move them to the back of the bag, then sew on your grab handle. I completely did not do that. I got ahead of myself, but I also was confused making this bag because I'm used to having a main zipper in the front of the bag. So the entire time I was making this bag, although I knew this was the front of the bag, I thought this was the front of the bag, and somewhere in my mind, I didn't put two and two together. So I ended up having to undo all of my stitching, which luckily this is done through the exterior and the lining, so it was fixable. It was something that I was able to fix. So I just took my time undoing all of it, went back, redid it, well, moved my straps to where they needed to be, redid everything, and lined it all up. So now my straps are where they should be. So if you saw that earlier in the video, and you're like, hey, you did not move your straps. Yeah, well, I did not. So I fixed it. So when you're doing that portion of the bag, remember to move your straps this direction, then sew your grab handle. All right, so let's move on to our bottom portion of the bag here. So if you have any uneven portions of your bag, so just check your bag and make sure if you have any uneven spots. I have a little bit right there, but nothing too crazy. You want to trim that down. So I'm gonna leave it the way it is for now. And we are going to baste all along this edge to close it up. So we're gonna need our clips, and we're going to clip the whole bottom portion to close it up so we can then add our base, and we are done. All right, I got some clips here. Now I'm gonna clip our bottom section here. And I need to find my centers, which are right there. So find your centers first, place a clip. Here to see how they're laying. This one's laying this direction, that one's laying that direction. That's the way I'm gonna clip them. Okay, and then just finish clipping around. All right, our bag is now clipped all the way around, and now we're gonna take it to the machine, and we're going to baste around this entire round bottom of our bag. So I've gone ahead and basted my bottom edge all together. And so now we're gonna flip our bag inside out, and we're gonna grab our bases. So let's flip our bag inside out first. So my bag is now inside out. And so now what we wanna do is that we wanna grab our base, exterior, and lining. And what we're going to do is that we're going to put them wrong sides together. We're going to find our centers, place a few clips, and then we're going to take this to the machine and baste them together. I have my bases clipped together, and let's go baste them at the machine all the way around, and then we're going to add it to our bag. My base is now trimmed. I'm going to grab some scissors, and I'm going to trim away some of that lining because it was a little bit larger than my exterior. That's what you should have. And now I'm going to add it to our bag. So I'm gonna flip my bag right side up there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. We're gonna find our centers first. Place a clip, not those clips, these clips. You wanna find your centers on all sides first. Front, back, sides. All right, and now once you have found all your 4 points, then go ahead and start clipping around, and then we will get this sewn down at the machine. So just start clipping around. All right, so I've gotten most of it clipped, and then now I'm going to ease in my corners. All right, our base is now clipped, and now we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to sew this at a 3/8 seam allowance all the way around. And up to you on how you want to sew this at the machine. I haven't quite figured out which way I'm going to do it yet. So we're either going to do it flat down like this or like this. I think I'm going to do this and then just kind of smush it down as I go and go all the way around. So the base is now sewn on, and I'm going to go ahead and trim a few spots away where it got away from me here a little bit. But other than that, it doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to trim those away, and then, oh, right here is a little bit, but then we're going to add our binding. All right, so I got that trimmed away, but I probably should have checked everything before I did that, but we're going to go ahead and check it real quick. I'm going to turn the bag right side out. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I caught everything in my seams. Go ahead and push that back through, and now we're going to add our binding. So our bag is now inside out again. We're gonna grab our binding and add our binding, and then take it to the sewing machine and sew that at a 3/8 seam allowance. So here I have my binding, and I'm gonna clip my ends on the corners. And I'm gonna fold this over, and I'm gonna start right on this mark right here, on my center mark, right on the back side of the bag. And I'm gonna clip, and then I'm gonna continue clipping all the way around the bag, making sure that I cover up both sides of my stitching evenly on both sides. And then just continue clipping. Alright, my binding's on, so now we're gonna turn the bag around and turn it out and see what it looks like. Alright, so I have the bag turned out, and it doesn't look horrible. It's not perfect, but I did struggle with the bag a little bit. I had issues left and right, and somehow it still looks like it should, right? I don't know. I just want to laugh. I don't know. I've never struggled so much with a bag before. I don't know why. But a lot of it was my fault. I kept forgetting things or doing things incorrectly for whatever reason. And installing this Mickey, for some reason, was, I don't know, it just took me forever. Mental block, I don't even know. I have no idea. I've never installed one of these before either, so that's my excuse. So we're going to go with that. But other than that, I don't think it looks horrible. It's not perfect. I do have a few wonky spots. There's a reason why I put that tag in this bag. It's just a little bit wonky. Thanks, Okla Roots, for that. It's perfect for this bag. But other than that, I like it. I'm satisfied. So now we're going to move on to our straps, and then our grab handle. No, the other strap portion, whatever that's called. We're moving on to that and our carrying straps. All right, so I have my webbing for my strap, and I'm making sure that it's all nice and straight before I start. And I'm going to burn my ends real quick to keep it from fraying. All right, and here I have my swivels, my sliders, and on this strap I'm going to just use regular rivets and not the Mickey rivets because you don't really see them. So let's start by threading through our slider and make sure that your strap is nice and straight. All right, so you should have your slider perfectly straight, and then your swivel, and you adjust right here, and then you just repeat with the other side. So I'll show you again how that goes. Make sure your strap is nice and straight. Add your slider. Add your swivel. Facing up, just like your slider. Put that in there. Just like your slider. Then we're going to turn it around. We're going to take this end. We're going to go back over, so not under. So if you come up this way, it's not under, it's back over. We're going to go back over that bar. So we're back over that bar. This webbing likes to shred. Alright, so we're over that bar, just like that, and we are attaching that to that portion, just like that. So see where I'm grabbing it, where it's over the bar? This is the side that adjusts, So if you pull on it like that, you know you're adjusting it correctly. Your swivel's on this end, and we are attaching it to this part where you're pinching it. So I'm going to pull out a little bit more. And I'm going to fold this under to hide my raw edges. And I'm going to rivet that in place. I'm totally eyeballing this. Alright, place my rivet, and then you do the same on the other side. Grab my rivet press and rivet all that in place. And our back straps are done. Okay, so I've gone ahead and used my rivet press to set my rivets, and my bag is ready to go. Isn't that cute? That totally looks cute. I love it. I love it. I know it gave me a headache, but I totally love it. Looks so good. Alright, so I'm going to set the bag aside for now, and we're going to work on our shoulder strap. So here I have my shoulder strap accents, some scissors, our shoulder strap, the last two swivels, and the rivets that'll go in after we're done, some clips, and glue. So we are going to cut the ends of our webbing to match this angle here. So maybe if I just do this, just to kind of get the angle and snip. Alright, and do the other end. We have our angles cut on the ends of our webbing, and now we're going to flip our accents over, and we are going to put glue all over this accent. But first we're going to thread our swivel clasps through. And now I'm going to use my glue. So I'm using Fabri-Tac glue because that's what I have. And I'm going to lay a generous amount, not super thin, but not super heavy, I guess. I'm gonna try to rub that through with my fingers. Do the same on the other end. And this glue doesn't dry like so fast that you don't have time to work with it. So that's why I like this glue. And it kind of gets a little tacky as it dries. So now we're going to grab one end of our webbing, and we're going to center that right in the center. And then we are going to close up this end, matching up our raw ends here. I'm going to place some clips, and we're going to do the same thing on the other end. Alright, and allow that to sit for a few minutes and dry before we take it over the machine and stitch along the raw edges all the way around at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Our shoulder strap is now done, and now we're going to add some rivets. This is an optional step, so you don't have to do this. So go ahead and punch your holes wherever you would like them on your accents, and then we will be done with this bag. So what did everyone think about this bag? I love this bag. I love the way it turned out. I did struggle a little bit with it. Mostly my fault, not the pattern's fault. I got ahead of myself a few times, and when you do that, sometimes you can mess things up and there'll be some seam ripping and you'll have to fix it. Luckily, my mistakes were fixable, especially this one. That one up there where I totally sewed my backpack straps in the wrong direction. I sewed them down this way, and you'll see it in there, and I'll say, hey, yeah, move them to the back. Don't want to do what I did, but if you do it by chance, you can unpick all this because this is sewn through the exterior and the lining, so it can be fixed. It's just a pain in the butt, but it can be done. So that was my biggest mistake for getting ahead of myself. And then and what else did I mess up on? I struggled with the curves up here. Not that I messed them up, but I struggled with them. I don't know why I had such a tough time with them, but I did. I eventually got it to work. It looks good enough. It's not perfect, but hey, it is what it is, right? The bag's done. So if you go slow, take your time, use materials that aren't super thick. This bag is very, very doable. If you've never done binding, because I know the bottom is finished with binding, give it a try. It's just one section of binding. It's a small little section that you can practice on. If it doesn't look good, you can't see it, just give it a try. It's down at the bottom of the bag. You don't see it at all, especially if you use matching fabric and matching thread. You won't even notice it down there. Like, you have to literally like dig looking for it, and it's not something you see. Binding tends to hide into the seams, and that's what helps give bags that structure that they need. This one didn't need it on the sides because of the way that it's constructed, but the bottom has a nice bottom because of that binding, and I love the way that this bag was designed. Linds did an amazing job creating this pattern. I absolutely love this bag, the shape of this bag, the way it wears, everything. This bag is my new favorite. I love this bag. So if you make this bag, I'd love to see it. Please tag me on social media. My Instagram account is in the description box below. And if you have any comments, please leave them. I will try to get back to everyone. And if you have any suggestions, any patterns you'd like to see me try, or sew up, or if I've already done them, because you don't know. But if there's something out there that you want me to do, leave it in the comments down below. I will give it a look, and maybe I'll do it. So thanks again. Thank you, Linds, so much for allowing me to use your patterns in my tutorials. It means so much to me. I absolutely love your patterns, and I'm always so excited to sew them up. And have a wonderful day, everyone.